What's up, hockey fans, and welcome back to the Good Goal Podcast, episode 36. It is March 10th. Clemson basketball is 4 points down to 13 seed Miami right now. They're the 5 seed, and they just threw the ball away, so that's cool too. I'm here in Clemson, South Carolina, watching the game on my TV. That's Matt TR right across town. Matt, what's going on?
What's up? Repping the Screaming Eagle jersey. We're undefeated in the Screaming Eagle jersey, so bring them back full time. And we'll go 82-0.
Matt's running on empty right now, coming back from a red eye from Tucson, or from Denver, I guess.
So got up at 6:30 yesterday. Do all of my classes on Zoom from Tucson International Airport, and I have F-35s doing practice runs right next to the window that I'm sitting at while I'm trying to listen to our professor talk. And it's awesome. Cool,
yeah.
Hop on the flight, 8-hour layover in Denver. So I take the train to downtown Denver, hang out with Nate McKinnon, the usual.
He's like, I listen to the pod. I love it.
Yeah. I went to this Tex-Mex restaurant. The host was pretty attractive. So that was cool. She was talking to me about my layover. And so shout out Rio Grande Mexican restaurant in downtown Denver. And I know this podcast, we have so many listeners that they're just going to get flooded with calls.
Right.
So,
so you're welcome. Sponsors.
Anyway,
that's
and
our
then
sponsor.
I board my plane 2 a.m. Eastern time, land at 6, shuttle to my car, drive here, get here at like 9 o'clock. So, it was like a 27-hour day. I sleep till 1. I wake up. I'm like, I got cotton mouth. My arms are weak. So empty's an understatement, but there's my story and I'm sticking to it.
So you woke up to some good news, Matt. This is something that we alluded to earlier on previous episodes, but Disney has finalized their non-exclusive TV streaming and media deal with the NHL for the next 7 years, beginning next season. I'll run through some of the details of that. They have exclusive Stanley Cup final coverage on ABC for 4 of those 7 years, half of the playoffs every year, 25 regular season games on ESPN or ABC, which is about what NBC Sports does this year, maybe a little less than that. They have 75 regular season games, which will stream exclusively on ESPN Plus and Hulu. And they'll also take over NHL TV, which will stream 1,000 or more NHL games every night. I'm excited about this deal, Matt, because it just means that ESPN is going to talk about hockey a little more, which is exactly what the game needs.
So, first of all, suck it basketball, because their All-Star game had the lowest ratings ever during a pandemic. So no one wants to watch basketball. Everyone wants to watch hockey. It's on ESPN. Let's do the damn thing. Second of all, ESPN has never talked about hockey ever, and this means they're hiring. So what's up, ESPN? Hire us. And third of all, I have ESPN Plus. It's awesome. I get to watch all the old UFC fights. So this is even better. The Caps win in a triple overtime game. I can go back and watch it.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah, so that's definitely cool. We'll get Stephen A. acting like he knows hockey, Max Kellerman saying whatever.
Ovechkin's going to hit a cliff, and then he wins 4 more Hart trophies.
Or Alexander Barkov is the greatest player of all time. He's just some weird stuff. But, hey, look what it's done to football and basketball, having people like that driving the conversation. So this is great for the game of hockey. I hope that we see more hockey on ESPN, and I know we will now, because now they have motivation to sell it.
Amen. Yeah.
All right, so Miami's up 65-62 with 40 seconds left. Miami has the ball. If we don't win this game, I don't know what happens. We could be like a 12 seed in the tournament.
I think I would prefer to be a 12 seed than a 5 seed.
I guess maybe so you don't have to play the 1 seed in the
12
second
seeds
round.
like that. 12 and 13 are those magic seeds.
Yeah. where they win in the first round sometimes?
Yeah.
Oh, giveaway.
So we're gonna post this like tonight with like the game's like been over for 4 hours.
Yeah. All right. Patrick Kane plays in his 1,000th game. Jonathan Toews breaks his silence as we for a video tribute. We know that he is going through some sort of illness, which is keeping him off the ice. Hope he's doing okay, but it was good to hear his voice, see his face. Kane has had a first ballot Hall of Fame career to this point. He has 400 goals and 660 assists for 1060 points. He has 3 cups, 9 All-Star Game selections. He was the Calder Trophy winner in his rookie year in 08 and 09. 2012, 13 Conn Smythe winner, and 2015 and 16 Hart, Art Ross, and Ted Lindsay Award winner. He's 7th in all-time scoring among Americans, and he's 6 points away from 5th, so he should pass that by the end of the season. Again, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best American-born players of all time, and hopefully American hero at the next Olympics.
Yeah, well said. He is the first American in NHL history to win the Art Ross. So,
wow.
Yeah, fun fact for you.
And that's most points in a season for anyone.
Yeah, the Barstool said it was kind of cool because he just had his like 400th goal milestone and then like thousandth game right after that. Definitely first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, his name's on the cup 3 times for the next 80 years.
Not a lot of guys can say that.
Barstool tweeted like the greatest American hockey player ever. He's definitely in the conversation. You know, if there's a table of 4 at a restaurant and it's the greatest American hockey players that have ever lived, he's definitely at the table. I don't know if he can pass Brett Hull or guys like that. Phil Esposito.
Well, he passed Brett Hull in points, but you're right. It's just
but
from a reputation standpoint.
Yeah.
Also, Brett Hull has 340 more goals than him. So,
and Brett Hull had to play against, the guy we talk about for 30 minutes every episode. So, Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, Wayne Gretzky. Yeah.
Anyway, definitely first ballot. And it's awesome that we grew up in a generation where Patrick Kane was wrecking the league.
Agreed.
Definitely in 20 years, we're going to be telling our kids about Patrick Kane and his 6 shootout goals and hopefully taking America to the gold medal in 2022.
Exactly. Yep. Huge Olympics coming up for the Americans because a lot of guys in his age, which is kind of the first of our life, the first like great American players who are really making an impact every night in the NHL. So, yeah, he's just one of those guys that you grew up liking just because, he's from the U.S. And obviously you and I talk all the time about how much international hockey we watch and how much we love it. So,
yeah, and this is kind of like the Patrick Kane, generation of Americans. This is probably their last run, at an Olympic gold medal. I mean, we haven't had them in the Olympics for some time, but like in 2026, I don't see Patrick Kane will be around like 1,350 games. Like, can he still produce the way he is now? Like guys like TJ Oshie, those guys will be probably 35, 36. So
right.
It would be insane to see this generation finally bring a gold.
Yeah, God, I can't even imagine. Okay, let's get into some suspensions. We actually haven't had a lot of suspension talk on this podcast this season, but there are 2 to talk about. We'll start with the less contentious of the 2. Dante Fabro suspended 2 games for elbowing on Brock McGinn. As always, go watch the video. As much as we don't like to see guys get hurt, the videos are kind of funny. Not because it's a guy getting hit, but it's just how dry whoever does it. Is it Brendan Shanahan? It could be Shanahan. Whoever's narrating that video is so dry and almost like
it's NBC Sports, right?
No, it's the Department of Player Safety that makes these videos.
Okay, yeah. And they put them out on Twitter, and the guy's like,
right.
So you can see here,
he's like,
and you're
this is elbowing. You're like,
I couldn't tell when his elbow just slammed into the guy's temple.
So basically, to go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no, I was going to break it down, but go ahead.
Okay, basically to explain this situation, The puck is rimmed around the wall. Brock McGinn goes to sort of stop it with his feet, so he's up against the wall in like a stationary position. And then Fabro comes in with his elbow up, but not really in an unusual way. But he just kind of connects with Brock McGinn's face. And I might have had those mixed up, but Fabro was the one laying the hit. His elbow just connects with Brock McGinn's face. I don't think there's really any choice. It's direct, significant blow to the head with the elbow. 2 games feels appropriate for me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't intentional. If his, head is in a different spot, it's a routine hit, what it looks like. I mean, his elbow was kind of high, but he was bracing himself for the hit, like for those on YouTube, like this. Right. And Brock McGinn's head just happened to be right here. So, I mean, it was like a clean John Jones elbow. But it's unfortunate because that, obviously that wasn't the intention.
Right. And in that explanation video that we just alluded to, player safety department does say it's not uncommon for guys to put their elbows and hands out in front to sort of brace for the impact.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want their chest bearing the load of the hit. It was just another one of those situations, except his elbow just happened to hit him in the face, and it hit him really, really hard. I would be surprised if McGinn wasn't, injured.
He played the rest of the game.
Yeah, okay, so he's okay.
Right after that,
there's 15 seconds left, so I'm going to call this. All right, timeout, never mind.
Right after the hit, he was on the bench just like spitting out, and it's like, that's such a typical hockey player.
Oh, yeah. There's no way he's coming out of that game.
All right, let's get to this next one, and it's controversial because, of course, this has to happen when our teams are playing. Tom Wilson suspended 7 games for hit on Brandon Carlo. Carlo, it was a great acting job.
Yeah, that's why he went to the hospital for 2 nights.
He went to the hospital. I mean, look, Tom Wilson has maybe the worst reputation in the game of hockey, so that's why he got 7 games. But I guess it's just like such a wishy-washy thing of like, I believe he got 7 games because he's labeled a repeat offender, but according to the letter of the NHL repeat offender bylaws or whatever you want to call them, he's not. I mean, it's been almost 3 full years since his last suspension. And you said before the pod, what is it? 18 months is like the.
Yeah. So it's 18 months, but there's some weird explanation where they say they can't use it in order to give a guy a fine or suspension, but they can use that he has. All right, we just lost, I think. Yeah, we just lost.
Go team.
That's bad. We just lost in the first round of the ACC championship.
Second, we got to buy.
Yeah, we got to buy. Okay, our first. Yeah, so it's something weird, but they can't use it as the primary reason to give a guy a suspension or fine, but they can use it to justify giving a guy a certain amount of money or gains. As usual, it's not clear. The Department of Player Safety is, of probably the 4 major sports, the most inconsistent, other than maybe the MLB. The Justice Department in the NHL does not, give justice.
I don't know. The Justice Department quotations in the NFL is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the suspensions they really give for like. I mean, yeah, but Brady getting 4 games for a conspiracy theory of deflating balls on a night where it's negative 37, and then a player beats up his girlfriend and gets like a fine. Like,
yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off track. But so the hit, it's like Carlo goes in the corner and it's a puck battle, and Wilson just comes flying in, and when you slow it down, it's like the hit shoulder to shoulder, but his head bangs up against the.
Yeah, so he kind of hits Carlo's shoulder on the way to the head, so it's not like, as the NFL puts it, it's not, the head is not the principal point of contact. The principal point of contact is the shoulder. However, he just kind of glances off the shoulder and then hits his head,
And it's such a bang bang play because
Right.
like Carlos sees him coming and turn the way he turned his head is what made the contact with the head. So it's like when you look at it and obviously frame by frame, you're like, well, look, you can, but it's such a bang. The issue I have with it is it is a bang bang play. You got to call it on the ice. I mean,
I can't believe they didn't.
I'm fine with 2 minutes. I'm fine with 5. But be consistent. If it's not a penalty on the ice and then you go back, you're like, wow, 7 games. It really doesn't make sense to me. Like, if you miss a targeting in football, you can't go back and be like, this guy has to miss half the season. Right? Like, he gets a fine and then we move on.
Right. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think the main issue with this whole suspension is the fact that it wasn't called on the ice. Because you look at it full speed and it really does look terrible. Before you zoom in, so to explain it, there's a scrum. Carlo is his head is sticking out at the front of the pile, and he's just kind of like digging at the puck. And Wilson comes in with his hands up, which you're not allowed to do. And his elbow hits his shoulder, and then both his fists go into Carlo's head, and he falls as a concussion, whatever. I don't think Tom Wilson is trying to hurt Carlo in that situation. I don't think he's trying to hurt anyone in any situation. But I also know for a fact that he's a mutant. He has a switch in his brain that he can't turn off. And that's part of what you love about him as a Caps fan, I'm sure. He has that ultra competitiveness. That's why he's able to fight guys and then just play games right after. I mean, it's typical in an NHL player. I don't think he's going around trying to hurt people. However, I think this is a dirty hit. You can't go in with your hands up. His stick and fist both go into Carlo's head. If they gave him any less, I don't think I would have been angry. But when I saw 7 games, I was like, that's about what I expected them to give him. Whether or not I think that's correct. And here's what it is, Matt. And Marchand has a similar reputation for Tom Wilson. He doesn't play the game as physical, but he sort of gets a lot of stick work penalties and whatever. When Ovechkin the night before speared Frederick in the groin, which was an innocent enough play, but do you remember that play?
Yeah.
He ended up getting fined $5,000, and a lot of Bruins and Cass fans on Twitter obviously were arguing about it. And the argument obviously is that if Marchand did that, he'd be getting 6 games, even though Marchand hasn't been suspended in 3 years. So I think to complain that Tom Wilson's reputation is part of this, even though it's not supposed to be, I don't think you can have it both ways. You know what I mean?
I don't understand what you're saying.
You can't say when Ovechkin speared him in the groin, you can't say, well, of course Marchand would be suspended for that. He has a bad reputation. Ovechkin does not. But Tom Wilson has been suspended more often and more recently than Marchand. So I think it's fair game to use that if you're going to say, yeah, Marchand should be suspended for a play like that had he done what Ovechkin did.
That's not both ways. That's just being consistent.
No, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Ovechkin got fined and not suspended and not penalized for spearing,
yes,
which is fine. I didn't think right. For Cass fans for Bruins fans to say, well, if Marchand did it, he'd be suspended.
Yeah, that's because the case, Marchand has a reputation.
Agreed. So does Tom Wilson. So that's why you got.
I'm not. How is it that?
I'm not saying you're doing it.
No, your argument is contradicting itself because you're saying if Marchand were to do it, he would have gotten suspended, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tom Wilson had a dirty hit and he did get suspended because of his reputation. So it's just consistent.
I think we're on the same page here, Matt. Marchand would be suspended for what Ovechkin did, which is right because he's done stuff like that before. He has a reputation. He's a repeat offender. He gets suspended.
Listen. The last Ovechkin took, it was definitely a dirty play. He shouldn't have done it. But let's look at the alternative. The last time a 19-year-old wanted to fight Ovechkin, his head slammed against the ice and he was out the rest of the series. So I think Ovechkin probably knew that it wasn't going to be good. Frederick is a goon, but like Ovechkin's a 35-year-old. He grew up in essentially Siberia. Like he's just built different. So I think if you're Trent Frederick, you have to go, all right, well, I'd rather be in pain for 10 minutes than be in the hospital for a week.
I guess, yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. So everyone's like, I want Ovechkin's head on a stick. I'm like,
I thought that was dumb.
You got to say glass half full, because the other alternative is Frederick's in the hospital. So, I mean, Ovechkin doesn't fight often, but when he does, it's not good for the other person.
Right. I say the same thing about Chara. I think Chara's the best fighter in the league. He just never fights.
And it was also awesome Marchand and Chara going at it a little bit. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wilson, whatever. Just be more consistent. That's my whole point. Call it on the ice if it's a penalty.
I think everyone agrees with you, yeah. But I think he should have been suspended, and we can leave it at that. Also, one thing to think about here is 7 games in a 56-game season is not 7 games in an 80. Right, is not a 7 games.
That's 11 games.
Right. Okay, we already talked about Dante Fabro, so some suspension talk this week, which is always interesting. Let's talk about another league.
One I agree with, one I don't. So
yeah, okay. I agree with both. Panarin returns from personal leave, joins the Rangers in Boston for Thursday night game. If you remember, Panarin was receiving threats from Russia. A hit piece was written about him from the Kremlin about him sexually assaulting a girl no, not sexual. I think he just hit her. Saying he punched a girl.
Like he punched this girl when she was like 16, and there's no shred of evidence. There's no shred of evidence that this even happened.
So naturally,
Panarin
he's
even
afraid
said
for his
that.
life. Yeah.
Panarin even said, like, I've been outspoken about Putin, and this is just their cheap way of trying to like wreck what I have going on here, which is true, because if you remember, like one of our first episodes ever, Panarin, it was like right after Panarin got in that whole like debacle with Putin. And I was like, what's the money line that Panarin makes it to the regular season alive? I mean, it was right after he signed with the Rangers. So this is like an ongoing thing. And it's weird. Like you're talking about arguably the most powerful man in the world in Putin. Like he just does whatever he wants. And he wields his power that wasn't really given to him.
What do you mean? He's like, you don't think he won by 99% in the election?
He won the first time like 30 years ago or whatever. I don't really know Russian history. I just know that if it was a real democracy, he wouldn't be in. Anyway, I think it's weird how like arguably the most powerful man in the world is like going at it, like trying to do this personal vendetta with a hockey player. But it's also like Trump, where he's like tweeting back at celebrities. Like, anyway,
it's
it's
funny
just
how
weird
he's
to
like stooping to that level. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it, Russian hockey players, other than people in actual power, probably wield the most power in Russia, at least as if we talk about social capital.
I mean, you got to think of it like Ovechkin is like Michael Jordan over there. Right. I mean, you have so many Caps fans just because of him. Whereas like, Michael, like people were and LeBron, same thing. So I guess I get it. Like LeBron's words carry way more weight than everyone else's. So
right. So I think it's a similar thing. But if you remember the Rangers statement immediately after? It was like extremely aggressive. It was not as diplomatic as you'd expect them to be. They were like, this is obviously an attempt by the Kremlin to sully the good name of Panarin just because he disagrees with them. It's disgusting. Panarin is obviously upset and worried, so he's going to take a leave of absence. So that's over. It's been 2 weeks since then, and he'll be back on Thursday night.
I thought it was awesome because at some point, the gloves are off. And the Rangers being like the 7th richest sports organization in the world, they, speaking of power, I thought it was cool that they didn't just back their player like professionally. They were like, look, this is our boy. Don't mess with him.
Yeah, I loved it.
So yeah, I thought it was cool. It wasn't as professional, but so what? Like, this whole thing isn't professional.
Right. Professionalism is out the window.
Yeah.
But good to have him back. He's good for the game. And obviously he's an extremely good player.
Good.
All right. Go ahead, Matt. Let's hear our games of the week.
All right. Our game of the week The Vegas Golden Knights, they are first in the Honda West Division. They are at the St. Louis Blues, who are second in the Honda West Division, back to back. So March 12th, which is, I'm looking at my calendar, Friday, and March 13th, which is Saturday, both at 8 p.m. So expect to see Fleury one, Lehner the other. Yeah. I mean, Vegas is so good right now.
Yeah. And Lehner has been on IR, Matt. It could be COVID list, but I think he is returning this week. So.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. The only reason I know that is because he's on my fantasy team and he hasn't played in like 3 weeks. But they don't need him because Fleury's the best goalie in the world right now.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, the Blues have 5 more games than everyone else played. That's why they're second. But Vegas and St. Louis are kind of separating themselves as the best teams, which is surprising that Colorado isn't up there as well. And then you got the Wild, who are 7-2-1 in the last 10. Mm-hmm. So that West Division, I mean, it's definitely top heavy. You got 5 good teams and then 3 really bad teams. But yeah, there you go. Those are games of the week. So I got Vegas sweeping.
There you go. In the interest of being interesting, I'm going to say St. Louis sweeps because obviously you could say split for every single one of these. But both those teams are fun to watch, and obviously I have my allegiance to my guy Torrey Krug, but it's hard to bet against Fleury right now. He's probably the best player in hockey as we speak.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into our power rankings from Emily Kaplan of the newly NHL associated ESPN.
Yeah, Christian right before the show was like, should we do the ESPN power rankings? I was like, of course. They just signed that deal. We got to give our girl Emily a shout out.
All right. Number 1, surprise, surprise. Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm just going into the standings right now.
Yeah, they are 8-1-1 in their last 10. Won 2 in a row. Yeah. I mean, we all knew this was coming. Right. Also, the top 4 in the Central Division, it's not even close between the top 4 and the bottom 4.
Yeah.
Literally just stop playing in the Central Division. The top 4 teams are making the playoffs.
Granted, we thought it was going to be like 2-6, a 2-6 split with Dallas and Tampa Bay taking the cake, and the rest of them not being good. Turns out Dallas is terrible, even though they haven't played any games. They're 8-5, which is obviously not great.
You got to win the games you have played.
Right, and a couple teams are definitely surprising. One being Florida. I'd say the other probably being Chicago. They made a run at the end of the year, but they were not very good last year. And they lost their captain and one of their best forwards in Jonathan Toews for the whole season. But they're still managing to win games. Yeah, and they're 6 points clear of Columbus right now, who is struggling. And I guess this is as good a time as any to get into this. People are calling for Tortorella's head, and this happens a lot because he's not a very likable person. But as much as we like Tortorella on this podcast, I definitely understand it. They overachieved for a couple of years in a row, but now they're probably underachieving.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Well, yeah, Tampa, they're right now this week they're the best team in the league. No, they're not, but they're up there with the Maple Leafs dropping 3 in a row. And we're going to talk about that in a sec. But they won the Stanley Cup last year in dominating fashion. We knew they were going to be up here. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into number 2, who we just alluded to. They're in our game of the week. The Vegas Golden Knights. They were ranked 3 last week. The description says in his age 32 season, Max Pacioretty isn't slowing down. Definitely an important add to that team a couple of years ago. And he's having a great year, as they just said. But the story of this team is obviously Marc-Andre Fleury,
and Mark Stone.
And Mark Stone, who at the beginning of the year, Mark Stone was named captain, and Fleury found himself in a situation where he was fighting for the starting job. we assumed that they would basically split time, which is important in a compacted schedule like this. It's 56 games in like 80 days or maybe 100 days, whatever it is. But he's not only earned the job, he's earned conversation as best goalie and best player in the league this year. And he deserves to be in that conversation because he's not carrying that team because they're scoring a lot of goals, but he's just playing out of his mind.
Yeah, it was crazy. He started the season like 9-0-1 and like a 9.4 save percentage. Look, if he wins another Vezina, chalk him up in the conversation of Dominic Hasek, Patrick Waugh, the guys like that. He's gonna be at the table for best goalie of all time. So,
and this is a guy who 5 years ago was cut, basically, was the backup for a 21-year-old Matt Murray, which is just crazy to think about because
it was just cut for Tristan Jarry.
He's probably we know who got the better end of that deal because Ottawa's terrible, but also Matt Murray is definitely the better goalie. Definitely this year.
Anyway,
yeah, it's crazy to think about how 4 or 5 years ago he's in a situation like that, and now today worth saying he's a Hall of Famer.
It's crazy to think 6 months ago he was like on his way out of the league because he felt so like he was backstabbed in the playoffs.
By Les Sabre.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because Robin Lehner is a Vezina finalist. Like that's who before he got hurt. That's who he's beating out. It's not some guy who's on the come up. Like it's a guy who's established. Yeah.
Like it was when he started there.
Chill out, Malcolm Subban. I will not take any Malcolm Subban slander on this podcast.
Yeah, he's played like 8 career games. I don't know why I was talking about him the other day, but I was. And I looked at him. He's played this year, I think.
Yeah, for Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vegas. I mean, they're the best team in their division.
For sure.
It's really not close.
And again, that's the only thing you can say. And by now we have a very good idea of who the teams are in each division, and we say this every week, we're not going to know how the divisions stack up against each other until July.
All right, number 3 is the team that's been number 1 for 5 weeks now, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, I mean, they've been so dominant in this North Division, this Scotiabank North Division. But again, we don't know how good this Canadian division is. It's so fun to watch, but how do they stack up against, Vegas? How do they stack up against the Caps?
Right. No idea.
So they've even losing 3 in a row, they're still 5 points ahead of Winnipeg. So yeah, I mean, they're the best team in Canada by far. So that's why you got to put them in here. But they're 6-4 in their last 10. So it's okay to,
like you said.
Yeah, it's okay to slow down a little bit, especially when you've been the hottest team in hockey for weeks.
100%. Yeah, and people are saying that owing their success basically to the defense because their offense has always been prolific. They just haven't been able to play defense. But Emily Kaplan is owing a lot of their success to their goalies. And they have 3 goalies who are basically playing right now. It's Frederick Anderson, Michael Hutchinson, and Jack Campbell. And all 3 have been out of the lineup for whatever reason as the season's gone on. But they've all been playing great. And they're second in even strength save percentage, which is huge. And they moved up from 25th last season. So we can't overstate the importance of goaltending in the NHL, and they have it.
Yeah, and something we don't mention, and I'm glad she did, is how important 5-on-5 play is. I mean, especially when you get into the playoffs, that's all it is. It's 5-on-5.
90% of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that's a good indicator of, how well they're going to do in the playoffs, especially overtime.
Right.
You want good 5-on-5 numbers in OT.
Yeah, and even in the playoffs, not as much ticky-tack calls, way less power plays. 5-on-5 is everything. And you have to have a good power play and penalty kill, but when it gets to
I
the
mean,
playoffs.
in the playoffs, the special teams is so important because just like you said, like there's so many less chances.
Mhm. Right.
So, but yeah, 5-on-5, and that's bread and butter.
All right, let's talk about the biggest jump of the week. This is Carolina moving up from 8-4. The Canes are mighty dangerous right now, says Emily Kaplan. Trocheck has 13 goals in 24 games this season. Yeah, that Trocheck is definitely a leader on that team. Brendan Moore said, "You don't expect him to score at this rate, but we'll take it for as long as we can." Obviously, thank you, Rod Brendan Moore. Very cool. Carolina is great. Like we said, they're probably another one of those teams that's surprising. You expect them now to be good. They've been good for a couple of years, but definitely not to be, up near the front of the pack with Carolina. I mean, with Tampa Bay in that, in that Discover Central Division.
Yeah, you don't expect them to be like, I mean, Tampa has a game in hand, but you don't expect them to be in contention to win like that division, especially with two Stanley Cup finalists, or both Stanley Cup finalists. There's only two. But yeah, I mean, you expect Carolina to make the playoffs. They have the talent. Rob Brind'Amour is an excellent players coach. He knows how to fire up his guys. And they've won 6 in a row. They're the second hottest team in hockey right now. And we're going to get to the hottest team here in a sec. But yeah, good. I mean, good for Carolina because hockey in the South is such like you wear a hockey jersey and people look at you like you're crazy. So if teams in the South can keep playing well, then, it's good for the sport.
All right, to number 5, we're staying in the same division. It's the Florida Panthers. They stay the same as last week. Florida, the team I think is the most surprising in the league right now. We also got to give our props to Keith Yandel, who played his 1,000th game last week.
In a row.
He's up there close to 900 games in a row, which is an unbelievable number. But he had to earn his place on this team this year, and he was scheduled or slated to be a healthy scratch in the first game of the season. And he's since played well, earned a spot back on the team. He's a leader on that team, so he deserves it. But there's a lot of guys stepping up. And we talk about, Alexander Barkov was voted most underrated player in the league last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he deserves those honors. Another guy, Anthony Duclair, ranks top 5 in the league in expected goals for percentage. I don't even know what that means. But that's another guy who's producing. That whole team is sort of stepping up, doing it by committee. Bobrovsky, coming off a bad year, is playing great. This is a really good team.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's kind of like, it reminds me of Columbus, where they have a good goalie, and obviously in Bobrovsky, who was the goalie that I'm alluding to in Columbus. And it's just like a bunch of weird pieces that are just fitting. If they make the playoffs, they're a sleeper pick for sure.
Definitely.
And again, hockey in the South. I don't even know if anyone, pre-COVID, did anyone even go to Panthers games? Where are they? In Miami?
It's just old Bruins, Rangers, Islanders, Caps fans that
retired down there. Yeah, fair enough. All right, number 6, the hottest team in the league. They've won 6 in a row, 8-1-1. They now lead the division, which I don't think anyone other than them saw coming. And that is the Mass Mutual East first place people. I don't even know what to call it. The New York Islanders.
Yeah, and they deserve it. I sort of get a look at all these teams in the East when they play Boston. I try to watch as many other games as I can, but you get to know teams pretty well when you play them 7 times a year. And at this point, you played everyone basically 3 times or 4 times. God, are they good? They're 4-0, or I guess, yeah, they're 4-0 against us, and we're 3-0-1. 0-3-1 against them, losing in overtime last night or in the shootout. But God, they're such a hard team to play against. They win in every single play, every single way possible. They could score a ton of goals and kill you. They can win 2-1 like they did the other night. They're just a great hockey team.
Winning by 6 goals in the Islanders doesn't compute. Barry Trotz isn't. That's not a high flying offense. But when I looked at the Bruins Islanders score a couple weeks ago and it was 7-2, I'm like, wait, did the Rangers put on Islanders jerseys and go play? Because this is such a great, Barry Trotz is such a great defensive mind. So for them to even think about putting up 7 goals is crazy. So shout out Daniel, Islanders fan. Shout out my friend Mike. But your time's coming, because screw Barry Trotz since he left us.
Let's talk about Varlamov. He deserves a lot of credit. He's playing great. But Matt Barzal is the big story of this team. He held out at the beginning of the season. And obviously when this happens in hockey, because hockey is such a traditionally minded sport with a ton of old school fans, whenever a guy holds out in their contract, like William Nylander did a couple of years ago, the entire conversation is, oh, he obviously doesn't care. He's in this for the money. He doesn't want to win. So, of course, Matt Barzal comes out and begins a pretty obvious Hart Trophy campaign. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but he absolutely deserves to be in the conversation because he had the goal of the year as it stands right now. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, I was about to say that. His goal a couple nights ago.
Yeah.
Oh, go watch it.
He went through the legs in traffic, beating a guy to the outside. I should say torching a guy to the outside. It was an unbelievable goal. It's going to stand as the goal of the year. I don't think you can beat that.
He's so quick too. Yeah, it's crazy because like we played them in the playoffs last year, and I can't remember. It was one of the Caps announcers was like, "Yeah, Barzal's more smoke than he is fire," or he's like all smoke, no fire, something like that. And like literally 30 seconds later, he torched us for a goal, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" So yeah, it's about time that Barzal gets the recognition that he's deserved because after Tavares left, Barzal and Anders Lee and Anthony Beauvillier, those three have really been the offense for that team because they're so defensive minded. So yeah, good for Matt Barzal. And they deserve all the love they're getting, especially at 8-1-1 and winning 6 in a row.
All right, let's talk about your Caps, who have moved up from 10 to 7. They're second in the division right now in the Mass Mutual East Division. And all the talk here is about their power play, which they say has been bad on the road on 3 of 32. But that means for 9%, but they're at 26%, which means their power play at home is probably close to 50. Which is
our power play at home is ridiculous. And it's so funny. You know why? Because someone asked Laviolette about that, and he said, our fans at home just really get our power play rocking because there's no fans.
It's weird. It must just be a coincidence because
it's not a coincidence.
Other than sleeping in your own bed, there's no
Obi knows
advantage.
That ice. Yeah. That circle he sits in, it just feels different when it's at home.
Yeah, they keep it nice and soft for him over there.
Yeah. Our power play's always been like best in the league because of the greatest goal scorer that's ever lived. Whatever.
That's the expectation. Yeah.
We're at 7. That's fine. I just want to get to the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, it's just such a weird year. And okay, this is pretty convenient. We'll move on to the Bruins. At 8, honestly, I don't think we deserve to be in the top 10 right now, but I know I have to defend myself here because 2 weeks ago we were at 6 in the NBC Sports poll, and I said, that's ridiculous. This is the best team in hockey. And then I said, people attack the scoring depth just because that's like what you do to the Bruins. The Bruins always have scoring depth, but this year they don't. Since then, I think the top line has 20 goals 11 goals, and the second line has 0. David Krejci has 0 goals this year. This morning, Don Sweeney came out with a statement that said, yeah, our scoring depth is an issue that we need to address. And he says that every year and they never do it. God, I don't know, Matt. I should stop saying good things about the Bruins on this podcast and then maybe they'll play well. Right now, 8 is fine. If it's judging based on the last 2 weeks, we're the 24th team in the NHL right now. But if you're judging by the first 2 weeks of the season, we're the best team in hockey. So that's just how it works. We're bad right now.
Again, yeah, it's like if you do the power rankings every week, what's the criteria? Because in the last 10, the Bruins are at 3-5-2, and they've lost 2 in a row. Like, what calculates them to be in the top 10? So, whereas I'm like Caps, I'm like whatever. We're 7-2-1 in the last 10. I mean, we did blow a 3-goal lead, and New Jersey forced overtime yesterday, but that's a different story. Yeah, but the Bruins always turn it on at some point, so maybe that's why they're 8.
I don't doubt that the Bruins will figure it out. I just hear Nick Ritchie's being compared to Milan Lucic, which is ridiculous because Nick Ritchie hasn't dropped the gloves a single time. I like the way he's producing. He has 8 goals already in 22 games on the second line. But Milan Lucic used to pummel people and then score 2 goals that night. So,
yeah, he's like the Dollar General Tom Wilson.
Who, Lucic?
Yeah.
Lucic was Tom Wilson before Tom Wilson.
Milan Lucic is working at Home Depot, so I don't know what.
No, he's not. He's still in the league. He's still ragdoll.
No way. No
he
way.
Is. He is.
At number 9, the St. Louis Blues. I didn't even know this. They welcomed Tarasenko back this week.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge for the second half of the season. Yeah, I mean, they're already second. They have the most games, I think, in the league, but yeah, like the Blues are always good. They're gonna make their way in the playoffs. The question is, right as it stands, they're gonna have to face a really hot Wild team. If the season ended today, so we'll see. But Tarasenko is so big for that team. He's
feels
so
like he hasn't played in 3 years, and
that's
honestly,
true.
it could be that. It could be that. So we'll see how he does. Yeah, even if he adds 10 goals in the rest of the season, he's not going to hurt the team.
Yeah, I don't mind them at 9.
All right, let's round out the top 10 with the Winnipeg Jets, who are pretty hot right now. Paul Stastny, who honestly could be 63 years old, and it wouldn't surprise me, signed this summer for his second tour of duty with the Jets, they said.
Paul Stastny is Peter Stastny's son, and honestly, they could be the same age.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but Paul Stastny's been in the league since 1987.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Jets are good after dumping off that absolute disappointment of a loser, Patrick Laine, who plays Fortnite and eats Cheetos all day.
Wow.
He's not having a good go of it in Columbus, and Winnipeg has not looked back since getting rid of him. I'm not saying that's why they're good, but I am saying they are good without him. So take that as you may.
Yeah, I don't even. Does Paul Stastny really deserve this shout out?
Her descriptions are kind of weird, but I don't mind Winnipeg at 10 because they are playing.
I love her rankings, but she throws out where is it? Expected goals for percentage. What does that even mean?
So having gone back and read that, I think she's saying Duclair is expected to score a lot of goals and isn't. So it's kind of like he's not even scoring and they're still playing this well. So imagine when he turns it on. But again,
so it's just like an algorithm that the way he's playing and the amount of shots he has, he's bound to score. Is that what that means? Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Winnipeg. I mean, again, going back to the standings, they're second in the division. I'm pretty sure they play Toronto this week, so we'll see how they stack up. Plus, again, Toronto's on a skid, so kick them while they're down because if they get back up, they're gonna blow out this division. Mm-hmm. I love that culture in Winnipeg. I really do. Their whiteout games in the playoffs are just
amazing,
insane. And they made the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Yeah, I'm happy Winnipeg's good again. I'm happy they're back, which it sucks that they took from Atlanta now that we live 2 hours away from Atlanta. But no one went to Thrashers games, and so I'm glad the Jets are back. Plus, their retro '80s Jets jerseys are sick.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything you just said. I don't think it's because you're out. I think it's because I just got a phone call and now I can't hear anything.
Hello?
Whatever. That's all we got for today anyways. So thank you all for listening. Hopefully you can hear me right now because there's literally nothing coming out of my headphones. Okay, Matt's giving me the thumbs up.
I'm giving him the thumbs up. He can't hear a word I'm saying. What?
You're back. You're back. I can hear you. All right.
Dude, I went on this 10-minute rant about the Jets. You didn't hear any of that?
No, literally, someone
That's
called me
awesome.
and then my sound turned off.
All right. The summary was, I'm glad the Jets are back in Winnipeg. It sucks that they, went from Atlanta to Winnipeg because we're now 2 hours from Atlanta. And the Jets 80s jerseys are sick.
Yep, they are. They're awesome.
That's the summary.
All right. Well done. Well said. But anyways, that's all we have. Anyways, to recap, the most exciting part of this week is ESPN. So
fantasy standings.
Yeah,
I'm definitely dead last.
Let's get up on that. I lost bad last week to your brother, Matt. And now
Nick?
I'm playing my dad this week.
You lost to Nick, right?
I don't know, maybe I did. Getting killed by my dad. Fantasy
yeah,
hockey
Nick was like Christian talking all this crap, and I'm whooping him in fantasy. Yeah, Nick loves it. He's so into it, but it's like he gets so frustrated because he's like, all these COVID breaks and stuff. I only get like someone else is scoring 88 points, and I only have 2 guys playing.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't make any sense. It's so difficult.
So, I guess we can let the cat out of the bag. I've been accepted to the University of Arizona for grad school.
Are you prepared to give your commitment or what?
I don't know. No, I'm not. I got a lot of. If anyone has 65, that's what I was saying. Me and Nick were talking about. I'm gonna get an Arizona hat and then like a bunch of random hats, like Dale Earnhardt Jr. hats, like that don't even make sense. And then when I like commit, I'm just gonna like put my hair. Yeah. If anyone has 65,000 burning a hole in their pocket, let me know.
Yeah, I know a lot of you have that. So.
Yeah. Well, we have like 8 million listeners. So
right. So one of you is bound to be filthy rich with nothing to do with their money. Right?
Yeah. Except invest in someone's grad program.
Right.
All right. Go Caps. I'm gonna go sleep.
All right, man.
See y'all next week.
later.